My name is Dr. Elena Maria Vasquez. I'm 41 years old. And on March 22nd, 2024, I died on the floor of my own medical clinic. I had been working late that Thursday night, finishing up patient charts and ordering supplies for the next week. As a family doctor in Phoenix, Arizona, I was used to long days. My husband Carlos was home with our 2 kids, Sophia, who's 8, and Miguel, who's 12. I remember thinking about how I promised Sophia I'd help her with her school project about butterflies when I got home. I loved being a doctor. It wasn't just my job, it was who I was. For 15 years, I had poured my heart into caring for families in our community. Most of my patients had been coming to me for years. I knew their kids' names, their struggles, their victories, but lately, I felt so tired. Not just tired from work, but tired in my soul, like I was running on empty and couldn't figure out how to fill back up. That night, I was sitting at my desk when this sharp pain hit my chest like a hammer. It was nothing like I'd ever felt before. I tried to stand up, but my legs wouldn't work. The room started spinning, and I could feel my heart beating so fast it felt like it might explode. I reached for my phone to call 911, but everything went black before I could even touch it. The next thing I remember, I was floating above my body. I could see myself lying there on the carpet next to my desk, face down, completely still. It was the strangest thing. I felt so peaceful, but I was also confused. I kept thinking, that's me down there, but I'm up here. How is that possible? I could hear the cleaning lady, Maria, screaming when she found me. She was shaking my body and crying in Spanish. Doctora Elena, wake up. Please wake up. I wanted to tell her I was okay, that I was right there, but she couldn't hear me. Then I started moving upward, like I was being pulled by something gentle but strong. The ceiling of my office just disappeared, and I was floating through this warm, golden light. It felt like being wrapped in the most comfortable blanket you can imagine, but it was made of pure love. I found myself in this beautiful place that looked like a garden, but not like any garden on earth. The colours were so bright and alive that they seemed to sing. The grass was the greenest green I'd ever seen, and there were flowers everywhere that sparkled like they had tiny diamonds on them. The air itself felt alive, and I could breathe it in like it was feeding my soul. That's when I saw him. Jesus was walking toward me, and I knew it was him without anyone telling me. He looked different than in any picture I'd ever seen. His skin was olive-coloured, his hair was dark and wavy, and his eyes, they were brown, but they held so much love that I started crying just looking at them. He was wearing a simple white robe that seemed to glow from the inside. When he spoke, his voice was warm and gentle, like my grandfather's voice when I was little, and he would read me bedtime stories. But there was also power in it, like thunder that didn't scare you. Elena, he said, and hearing my name come from his lips made my heart feel like it was going to burst with joy. My beloved daughter. I fell to my knees, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Jesus, I whispered. I can't believe it's really you. He reached down and helped me stand up. When his hands touched mine, I felt this incredible warmth spread through my whole being. It was like every hurt I'd ever had, every worry, every fear, just melted away. You have served me well, he said, smiling, but I have something important to show you. We started walking together through the garden. With each step, I felt lighter and more alive than I ever had in my whole life. We came to this place where we could sit down. It was like a bench, but it was made of light. Eleanor, Jesus said, looking into my eyes, I want to show you 3 things that are coming to your world before this August. Suddenly, the air in front of us changed, like we were looking through a window. I could see the earth below us, spinning slowly in space. The first thing, Jesus said, and the vision became clearer. I could see a map of the United States, and there were these red marks appearing in different places. There will be great shakings in the land, not just earthquakes, but shakings in the government, in the economy, in the hearts of people. Starting in late May, you will see things that have never happened before in your country's history. I watched as the red marks spread across the map. Some were on the west coast, some in the middle of the country, and some in places I didn't expect. But why, Lord? I asked. Because my people have forgotten how to pray, he said, and I could hear sadness in his voice. They have become distracted by so many things. They pray quick prayers while they're driving or doing other things, but they don't come and sit with me anymore. Real prayer, the kind that changes things, happens when you stop everything else and just be with me. I thought about my own prayer life and felt ashamed. I prayed every day, but it was usually while I was getting ready for work or driving. When was the last time I just sat still and talked to God? Jesus continued, "The shakings will wake people up. They will remember that they need me." The vision changed, and now I could see the second thing. It looked like darkness was spreading across different parts of the world, but it wasn't regular darkness. It was like a spiritual darkness that made people angry and confused. The second thing, Jesus said, is that there will be great confusion among the leaders of nations. Starting in June, you will see decisions being made that don't make sense. People in power will turn against each other in ways that surprise everyone. I watched as this darkness seemed to make people argue and fight. Families were turning against each other. Neighbors were angry at neighbors, and even people in churches were fighting. "But Lord," I said, "why is this happening?" "Because the enemy knows his time is short," Jesus replied. "He is trying to divide everyone so they won't come together to pray. But this is also part of my plan. When people see how ugly things get without me, they will cry out for me to help them." Then he showed me something that made me gasp. I could see people all over the world getting on their knees and praying like they never had before. Not quick prayers, but real prayers where they were crying and pouring their hearts out to God. "This is what I'm waiting for," Jesus said, and his face lit up with joy. "When my people really pray, not just asking for things, but coming to me because they love me, that's when I move in power." The third vision was the most intense. I saw what looked like a great light breaking through the darkness I had seen before. It started in small places, homes where people were praying, small churches, even people praying alone in their cars or bedrooms. The third thing, Jesus said, will happen in late July and early August. Because of all the praying that the first two events will cause, I will pour out my spirit in a way that hasn't happened in over 100 years. People will see miracles with their own eyes. Diseases will be healed instantly. Broken relationships will be restored overnight. People who have never believed in me will suddenly know that I'm real. I watched as this light spread from those small prayer places to whole neighborhoods, then to cities, then to entire regions. People were crying and hugging each other. I could see people walking out of hospitals completely healed. I saw families that had been torn apart for years suddenly loving each other again. "But Elena," Jesus said, turning to look at me, "this will only happen if my people pray. Real prayer. The kind where they fast from the things that distract them and spend hours just talking to me and listening to me." I started crying. "Lord, I haven't been praying like that. I've been so busy." He reached over and wiped my tears. "I know, my daughter. That's why I'm showing you this. You are going to go back and tell people what you've seen. You're going to teach them how to really pray again." "But Lord," I said, "I don't know if I know how to pray like that anymore." Jesus smiled. "It's simple, Elena. Just like when you were a little girl and you would sit with your grandmother on her porch and tell her everything that was in your heart. That's how I want my people to pray. Not fancy words, not trying to impress anyone. Just come and sit with me and talk to me like you would talk to someone you love." I remembered those times with my grandmother. We would sit on her old wooden porch swing for hours, just talking about everything and nothing. She never made me feel like I was bothering her or like I was saying the wrong thing. She just listened and loved me. "That's exactly right," Jesus said. And I realized he had been reading my thoughts. "I want to be like your grandmother was to you. I want people to know they can tell me anything, and I will never judge them or turn them away. Then something shifted, and I knew our time was almost over. I didn't want to leave. This place was so beautiful, and being with Jesus felt better than anything I had ever experienced. Lord, please don't make me go back, I begged. Can't I just stay here with you? Jesus took my hands in his. Elena, your work on earth is not finished yet. Your children need their mother. Your patients need their doctor. And most importantly, my people need to hear what you've seen today. But I'm so tired, Lord, I said, and I started crying again. I feel like I'm failing at everything. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough wife. And I feel like I'm not even a good enough doctor anymore. Jesus pulled me close, and I felt like a little child being hugged by the most loving father in the universe. My precious daughter, you are not failing. You are exactly where I need you to be. The enemy has been whispering lies to you, trying to make you feel worthless, so you won't do what I've called you to do. He held me for what felt like forever, and in that embrace, I felt all the exhaustion and discouragement leave my body. When you go back, he said, things will be different. I'm going to give you a new strength, a new joy, and a new purpose. You will still be a doctor, but now you will also be my messenger. You will tell people about the 3 things you've seen, and you will teach them how to pray. I looked into his eyes one more time. How will I remember all of this? You will remember every word, every detail, every feeling, he said. I will make sure of it. Jesus walked with me to the edge of the garden. I could feel myself being pulled back toward my body, but this time it didn't feel scary. It felt like I was being sent on an important mission. Remember, Elena, Jesus said, as I started to fade from that beautiful place. Tell them that I love them more than they can imagine. Tell them that their prayers really do matter. And tell them that if they will seek me with their whole hearts, they will find me. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air and coughing. My chest hurt so bad I thought someone was standing on it. There were people all around me, paramedics, nurses from the hospital next door, and Maria, who was still crying. "She's back!" someone shouted. "We've got a pulse!" I tried to sit up, but everything hurt. One of the paramedics, a young guy with kind eyes, was checking my pulse. "Mom, you've been down for 9 minutes. We need to get you to the hospital right away." 9 minutes. I had been clinically dead for 9 minutes. They put me on a stretcher and rushed me to Phoenix General Hospital, where I had privileges. In the emergency room, Dr. Martinez, who had been my colleague for years, was shaking his head as he looked at my EKG. "Elena, this doesn't make sense," he said. "Your heart stopped for 9 minutes. You should have serious brain damage, but all your tests are coming out normal. More than normal, they're perfect." I wanted to tell him about what I had seen, but I was still so weak. All I could do was whisper, "It was real, David. It was all real." They kept me in the hospital for 3 days, running every test they could think of. The cardiologist couldn't find anything wrong with my heart. The neurologist said my brain function was better than it had been in years. Every doctor who examined me said the same thing. This shouldn't be possible. But I knew why I was okay. Jesus had healed me completely when he sent me back. Carlos and the kids came to see me every day. Sophia brought me a picture she had drawn of butterflies, and Miguel brought me my favorite chocolate chip cookies from the bakery down the street from our house. "Mama," Sophia said, sitting on the edge of my hospital bed, "were you really dead?" I looked at her sweet little face and smiled. "Yes, baby, I was. But Jesus sent me back because he has something important for me to do." "What does he want you to do?" Miguel asked. "He wants me to teach people how to pray," I said. Carlos looked confused. "But honey, people already know how to pray." "No," I said, taking his hand. "He showed me that we've forgotten how to really pray. We say prayers, but we don't really pray." Over the next few weeks, I slowly started telling people about what I had experienced. At first, I only told close friends and family. Some believed me right away, especially Maria, who had found me. She said she had been praying for me the whole time the paramedics were working on me. But others looked at me like I was crazy. A few of my medical colleagues suggested I see a psychiatrist. They said the lack of oxygen to my brain had caused hallucinations. I didn't let their doubts bother me, though. I knew what I had seen was real, and I knew I had to start doing what Jesus had asked me to do. I began setting aside time every morning to pray the way Jesus had shown me. Not rushed prayers while I was getting ready for work, but real prayer time where I just sat with him and talked to him like I used to talk to my grandmother. The change in my life was immediate. I had more energy than I'd had in years. I was more patient with my kids and my husband. And at work, I found myself really caring for my patients in a deeper way than before. I also started a prayer group at my church. At first, only 5 people came, but I taught them what Jesus had shown me about real prayer, just sitting with God and talking to him from the heart, not trying to use fancy words or impress anyone. Within a month, our prayer group had grown to 30 people. Within 2 months, it was 60. People were experiencing things they had never experienced before. Marriages that had been struggling for years were suddenly getting better. People were being healed of sicknesses. Kids who had been rebellious were coming back to their families. But the most amazing thing was watching people's faces when they learned how to really pray. It was like they were discovering something they had been looking for their whole lives but never knew how to find. In April, I started having dreams about the 3 things Jesus had shown me. The dreams were so vivid that I would wake up feeling like I had just been there again with him. Then, in late May, it started. The first major earthquake hit California on May 28th. It wasn't the biggest earthquake California had ever had, but it happened at the same time as a huge stock market crash that nobody saw coming. Within the same week, there were 3 more earthquakes in places that rarely have earthquakes: Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Maine. But it wasn't just physical shakings. The government was in chaos too. Politicians who had been allies for years were suddenly turning against each other. The news was full of stories about corruption being exposed and leaders resigning in disgrace. I watched all of this happening and remembered exactly what Jesus had told me. People were scared and confused. But something else was happening too. People were starting to pray. The churches in our area started reporting that more people were coming to prayer meetings than they had seen in decades. Our own prayer group had to move to the main sanctuary because so many people were coming. In June, the confusion among world leaders that Jesus had shown me began to manifest. It was like watching the news had become impossible to follow because nothing made sense anymore. Countries that had been allies were suddenly fighting. Leaders were making decisions that seemed to hurt their own people. But again, I could see that it was causing people to turn to God. The prayer group at our church had grown to over 200 people. We were meeting every night of the week, and people were driving from other cities to join us. I started speaking at other churches about what Jesus had shown me. At first, pastors were hesitant to invite me because my story sounded so unusual. But when people heard about the prayer group and the things that were happening there, they wanted to hear what I had to say. By the middle of July, I was speaking at churches almost every weekend. The message was always the same. Jesus is calling his people to real prayer. Not quick prayers, not fancy prayers, but heart-to-heart conversation with him. And everywhere I went, the same thing happened. People would start praying the way I taught them, and miracles would begin to happen. Mrs. Johnson, who had been in a wheelchair for 8 years, stood up and walked during one of our prayer meetings. Tommy Rodriguez, who had been addicted to drugs for 15 years, was completely set free during a prayer time and never touched drugs again. The Hendersons, who had been divorced for 3 years, remarried after they started praying together. But the most incredible thing happened on July 28th. We were having our regular evening prayer meeting, and there were probably 300 people there. We had been praying for about an hour when suddenly the presence of God filled that sanctuary in a way I had never experienced, not even in my near-death experience. People started crying, but they were tears of joy. Others started laughing with pure happiness. A few people fell to their knees, but most just stood there with their hands raised, feeling the love of God wash over them like waves. Then the miracles started happening. Sarah Beth Williams, who had been born deaf, suddenly started hearing. She looked around the room with the most amazed expression and started saying, "I can hear you. I can hear all of you." Old Mr. Peterson, who had been battling cancer for 2 years, stood up and announced that he felt something change in his body. When he went to the doctor the next day, there was no trace of cancer anywhere, but it wasn't just physical healings. People were being healed emotionally and spiritually too. Families that had been broken for years were suddenly reconciling. People who had struggled with depression and anxiety were filled with joy and peace. The local news stations started reporting on what was happening at our church. Within a week, people were driving from other states to attend our prayer meetings. And then I started hearing reports of the same thing happening in other places. Churches all over the country were experiencing similar outpourings of God's presence. People were being healed, families were being restored, and most importantly, people were learning how to really pray. As we moved into August, the news was still full of confusion and chaos in the world, but there was also news of hope, stories of miraculous healings, of communities coming together to help each other, of people finding faith for the first time in their lives. I knew that what Jesus had shown me was coming to pass exactly as he had said it would. One evening in early August, I was at home with my family. Sophia was sitting on my lap, and Miguel was showing me a picture he had drawn at school. Carlos was reading a book in his favorite chair. "Mama," Sophia said, looking up at me with her big brown eyes, "are you happy that Jesus sent you back?" I thought about everything that had happened since my near-death experience. The long days of speaking at churches, the prayer meetings that went late into the night, the incredible things I had witnessed. It had been the most challenging and exhausting few months of my life, but it had also been the most fulfilling and joyful time I had ever experienced. "Yes, baby," I said, hugging her tight. "I'm very happy he sent me back." "Are you going to keep teaching people how to pray?" Miguel asked. "As long as he wants me to," I said. Carlos looked up from his book and smiled at me. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I wasn't sure what to think when you first told me about your experience, but seeing how God has used you these past few months, I know it was real." That night, after the kids were in bed, I went out to our back patio to pray. It had become my favorite place to spend time with Jesus. I would sit on the old wooden chair that Carlos had built for me and just talk to him under the stars. "Lord," I said, looking up at the night sky, "thank you for showing me what you showed me. Thank you for letting me be part of your plan." I sat there quietly for a while, just enjoying his presence. Then I felt him speak to my heart, not in an audible voice, but in that gentle way he had spoken to me in the garden. "Elena, this is just the beginning. Everything you've seen in these past few months is preparing my people for what's coming next. Keep teaching them to pray. Keep showing them how much I love them. And remember, you don't have to carry this burden alone. I am with you every step of the way." I sat there crying tears of gratitude, not because of everything God had done through me, but because of everything he had done for me. He had taken a tired, discouraged doctor and shown her the most incredible love in the universe. He had given me a purpose that was bigger than anything I could have imagined for myself. If you're watching this and wondering if your prayers really matter, I want you to know they do. I saw it with my own eyes in that beautiful place with Jesus. Every prayer you pray, every time you call out to God, it matters more than you know. But here's the thing. Jesus isn't just looking for us to say prayers. He's looking for us to pray. Really pray. To come and sit with him and talk to him from our hearts. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to use big words or know the right things to say. Just talk to him like you would talk to someone you love. Tell him your fears, your hopes, your dreams. Tell him about your day. Ask him questions. And then be quiet and listen for his voice in your heart. The 3 things Jesus showed me have all come to pass, just like he said they would. the shakings, the confusion, and the great outpouring of His Spirit. But I believe there's more coming. I believe Jesus is preparing His people for something even greater. And it all starts with prayer. Real prayer. The kind that changes everything. So will you join me? Will you set aside time every day to just sit with Jesus and talk to Him? Will you learn to pray with your whole heart? I promise you, if you do, your life will never be the same. And who knows? Maybe you'll be part of the next great thing God wants to do in this world. The choice is yours. But I hope you'll choose to pray, because Jesus is waiting for you. He's been waiting for you your whole life, and He loves you more than you could ever imagine.